As COVID-19 quickly disrupts our daily routines, for the mayor of Canada's largest city, it got personal quickly. John Tory is the mayor of Toronto, and he joins us now from his home via Skype for an update on what's facing the city and how he's faring in isolation. And I can't think of another politician, Your Worship, who probably likes isolation less than you. How you doing?
Well, I'm fine. I feel fine. There's no symptoms that I've experienced at all. But you're quite right. I mean, I like to be out and about around the community and listening to people. But I found that if there's a silver lining in this cloud, it's that I am not distracted by anybody because there's no one to be distracted by, and there's nothing to distract me. So I just focus on. Basically, today I did my first interview at 5:20 in the morning. I was on conference calls all day, and I'm still at it with you. But it's good. You can get all that. You can get a lot done when there's nobody popping in to see you or distractions that come up. So I guess that's the good news.
Well, remind us why you put yourself into self-isolation anyway.
Well, I went to England and I asked before I left about whether there was a problem with that in terms of risk. And at the time, and this just shows you how fast this thing is changing, I was told, no, there shouldn't be a problem with my coming back. And by the time I came back, this had evolved so quickly. I came back the very day that we had the incident with the NBA basketball player. We had, the basketball season basically being canceled, and on it went. By then, the rules had changed to say if you came back from traveling outside the country, you were strongly recommended to self-isolate for 14 days. And so I just felt that as a mayor of Toronto and somebody who's telling people they should do this in the public interest and to stop the spread of this virus, that I had to do it too. So off I went, and here I am.
Your medical officer of health for the city, Eileen de Villa, who was here not too long ago, confirmed that she now would like to see nightclubs shut down, restaurants shut down, bars shut down, that things have got to the point now where we have to stop congregating at these kinds of places in the city. What's your view of that advice?
She is 100% right. And I think the thing that people should not, mistake in listening to her talk about that today is she went on to say that while she's asking people and strongly recommending to people that own those bars and restaurants and so on that they should close, if they don't, we will consider seeking an order against them because it's serious enough. People cannot anymore, unfortunately, even on the eve of St. Patrick's Day, be looking at having large gatherings, even to have fun. I'm sorry about that. But the fact is the danger of those large groups gathering together, whether it's for St. Patrick's Day or just a bite to eat, is such that we have to say no to that and do everything we can to use both carrot and stick to say to people, you've got to stay home. You've got to stop going to these places where people congregate because that's how this virus is going to spread.
And can we be real crystal clear about the consequences if restaurants or bars insist on staying open and seating lots of people?
Well, it's up to the medical officer of health, but she indicated very clearly today that she would seek orders against people who didn't comply. And she indicated, just as a matter of reading the law, that the fines can be up to $25,000 a day. So I think for an industry that's struggling anyway, look, the bottom line, the good news is that many, many companies and individuals indicated today before she even said those words that they were going to comply voluntarily, because I think, frankly, they haven't had very many customers. She did say, and I hope people take note of this, that a lot of those very same restaurants will hopefully stay open for takeout and delivery purposes because they form an important part of feeding people now. So, but I think we're serious about this. We all are. I support her 100%, and I will support her going after people that don't comply because we've asked them nicely to do it. We've told them why, and it's a very, very important public health and public interest issue.
Your Worship, the economic implications of this are going to be quite significant, obviously. There may be places that can't survive 3 or 4 weeks with no customers at all, for example. And I'm wondering if you and your colleagues at City Hall have yet talked about how you might be able to help these folks out economically.
I spent a good part of the day on that, and that involved, for example, talking to about 25 different people in the tourism, divided in 2 groups, and then about 20 people in the film industry. Those are 2 industries, for example, for starters, and we're doing tech industry, small business going forward, and tomorrow and the day after. And they did indicate very clearly. I mean, the hotels were saying to me, for example, that some of them, big hotels you know very well and people across the province know, had occupancy rates of 9% last night. One hotel had 3 rooms occupied in the whole hotel. So those are perhaps less in danger of going down as compared to, say, a small film production company or a small restaurant. So we're going to be talking to the federal government with the other big city mayors tomorrow, talking about things we can do, because the number one word that they talked to me about today when I asked them was liquidity. And that concerned liquidity for business, meaning they have access to some money to help them pay bills that will keep coming in, including those from government. but also liquidity for people. A lot of the people that work in the film industry and work in the restaurant business are people that are, oftentimes the same people. They're trying to act when they can, and they're working in restaurants the rest of the time, and they suddenly lose both jobs, and they have no money left to pay their bills. And we need those people to stay in Toronto. We need to stand by them as we get through this crisis. And so there are different things we talked about today that I'll talk about with the other governments and with our own government. We're not able to sort of pass all this off to the other governments, and we won't.
Well, okay, let me follow up on that aspect. Can you imagine, for example, giving a corner bar or a restaurant a break on the property taxes while this is all going on?
Well, we announced today, for starters, that we would be giving them a period of grace in which to pay their taxes. But if you said to me, am I willing to go beyond that in terms of considering, as part of what we heard today, something we could do to help them with their taxes, which is one of the bigger bills they often face, the answer to that would be yes. But I don't want to presume upon the deliberations we're doing with all these small businesses and bigger ones. We're going to get the consultation finished this week, and then we'll have more to say about that. But the good news, Steve, is the City of Toronto is in a position where it has $6 billion in reserves we've carefully set aside. $290 million of that is readily available for us to use. It's not supposed to be used in a cavalier fashion, but it's called often a rainy day fund. Well, it's raining pretty hard out there, and we want to use that money and use the surplus we had last year from good management to help, and we will. It's only a matter of the degree to which we do that. And I must say, we have to rely on the other governments that have way more money than we do, notwithstanding all the good news I just conveyed. They have way more money than we do, and the federal government, I commend them, have said they're going to put up $10 billion to help people and businesses, and we're going to help them with the right ideas coming from the very people that I consulted with today.
To that end, let me ask you about how your conversations are going with those two other levels of government. How often are you talking to, for example, Premier Ford or senior cabinet ministers in his government?
I talked to Premier Ford yesterday. We had an excellent and very cooperative discussion. I told him exactly what we were planning on doing today vis-a-vis restaurants. I mean, it was the Chief Medical Officer of Health's decision, but I told him where we were headed with it. We compared notes on all of that. I've talked to the Deputy Prime Minister and 4 federal cabinet ministers yesterday. Great cooperation on a lot of things we have on our plate where we have to work on these things together. So I would just say the cooperation between governments has been excellent, not just good, but excellent. And I hope it continues that way, because that's what people have the right to expect from us.
How content are you with the decisions that they have made so far?
Entirely. I think the Prime Minister did the right thing at stepping up the pace of scrutinizing very carefully who comes into the country, because we can't afford not to do that. And I think the Premier, in bringing forward legislation, for example, to help protect the jobs of workers who will be affected by this, did exactly the right thing. So I think they're on the right course, as I hope they think we are. And we talk about this so that there's really no surprises. I would say the people that have to, that are doing great, and don't mistake me, but I think the people that really have to get on board with even more enthusiasm are the people. They have to decide. Employers have to say to their employees, you must work from home, if at all possible. Not that just you should think about it or you might consider it. And landlords have to help tenants, both business tenants and individual tenants, out by saying they're going to maybe have some indulgence with respect to the payment of rent for people that have lost their jobs and so on. And then the average person has to follow the instructions given by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Stay home. Don't be going to places where there are crowds. Don't be showing up in the emergency room to get tested if you just have a sniffle. Go on the website and find out if the self-assessment says you really are at risk at all of having the virus. So these are the things where people have to buy in. They've been great, but and we help each other and we stand with each other in Ontario and in Canada. And so I just hope that continues, because that's what we really need right now, is for people to buy in to the fact that the only way we're going to speed up the getting through this crisis is by people social distancing, as they say. That's really, really important. It's real, and it's science, and it requires individual behavior to change.
I do want to follow up on the tenant angle, because I know at Queen's Park today, the Premier and several of his senior cabinet ministers held a news conference this morning. And while many tenants perhaps were expecting an official announcement from the government that, yes, maybe we can put out a policy statement saying that landlords should cut tenants a break. And I guess in this city, half the people are tenants probably. It was not forthcoming. There was some break on not losing your jobs. The Labour Minister made that pretty clear, but no break on rents. Do you think the province should take that step now?
Well, let me put it this way, and I'm going to have some discussions with the Attorney General, who's actually responsible for a lot of this, I hope maybe tomorrow. But if I was similar in my powers to the Mayor of Los Angeles, who just said there will not be any evictions during the time of this crisis, that's what I would do. Because I think these are people that are vulnerable to begin with in some respects, and are going to be particularly vulnerable if they lose their job in a restaurant or in the film industry or in a small business. And I think with the housing problems we have already in the city, the last thing we need is during this kind of a crisis, when people have become particularly vulnerable because they're unemployed, to have them losing their housing. So I hope that I can persuade the provincial government. And I didn't hear them say no. I just didn't hear them say anything particular that headed towards yes. So I hope we can fix that up and get that protection provided for the next short period of time. That's all we're talking about here.
Okay. We know we don't normally traffic in rumors on this program, but the rumors were rife everywhere this morning that the province was going to announce something much more drastic. You might even say draconian, shutting the whole province down, for example. I noticed that you even tweeted about it today, saying, let's take it easy with all this rumor mongering. However, the province has also said nothing's off the table and they're considering everything, and that this is a very, as you pointed out yourself, a very quick moving story. If it gets to the point where the province feels that in essence, every institution, every company, everything has to be shut down, how does Toronto go on with that?
Well, we just go on as we have to do. But I will tell you that the likelihood is that if they reach such a decision, the information they will have been provided with by their medical officers of health will be the same as I'm hearing. And I will probably support such a decision if we get there. I can tell you when we have our conference calls with the senior officials, including in particular the medical officer of health every morning at 7 o'clock, that's the first thing we go through, which is have things changed in such a way as to warrant a significant change in the behavior of the government, in this case, my case, the city government. We go through that because it's a daily balancing act as between what we can do to stop the spread of this virus before it becomes calamitous for the healthcare system and for people's lives. So, I guess they're looking at it day by day. I know they're looking at it with experts. They're looking at it carefully and responsibly, as we are. And we will do what we have to do to keep people healthy, to keep the city safe, and so that the city can come back soon to the kind of success and prosperity it was enjoying just a couple of weeks ago, because the fundamentals are still there. This is a serious problem that's confronted us and the rest of the world too, and we're dealing with it as best we can.
Can I just check in as well with you on the city's employment situation? Because now that libraries are closing, community centers are closing, childcare centers are closing, we know already that all the schools are closed. What does that mean for the city's employment situation in terms of whether you've had to lay anybody off?
Well, we haven't. One of the things we said today, I think there's been some job dislocations in some of things like the March break camps, which were oftentimes students, for example, who would help us with that. And so obviously that employment never happened as opposed to people being laid off. But we said today that in addition to allowing these grace periods to pay taxes and things like that, that we're going to take a very careful look at how we can make sure we try to set an example by, having the impact on our labor force minimal so that they too can get through this, without undue hardship. So we're looking at that very carefully and trying to make sure we find ways. The vast majority of city services we're still delivering. I mean, yes, there are things that are closed, but the garbage is still being picked up, the water is still turning on, and the safe, and all those kinds of things. So I hope we can find a way to make sure that city employees are treated very fairly because they deserve that, so we're working on it.
Your Worship, let me ask you one last question. You've been very kind with your time. I'd like to know how you, as a person, frankly, who is an influencer at this moment, walks the line between getting people to wake up and change their behavior, understanding the seriousness of the predicament we are all in, balancing that with not adding to the very real anxiety and fear many people will be feeling because they've never gone through this before, and this is, after all, an incredibly serious moment in the history of the province.
I guess my experience in sort of running businesses that have crises, and I guess as well my mentor in life, as you know, Bill Davis, who you know very well, the whole notion of being a bit bland kind of serves you well in this time, because I think people look at when I say something and they know I'm not inclined to histrionics or to overstating things or exaggerating things. I pretty steady and pretty predictable day to day, whether it's in a crisis or outside of one. And I think that if you just stay that way and you just tell people the facts, I've tried to be very open and transparent about what we're planning and what we're talking about and how we're making decisions. And I will continue to do that. It's a bit harder for me to do it from this setting where I'm having to try to master this technology to appear on TV. But having said all that, I'm just going to sort of continue to try to be the steady hand at the tiller with a great team of people that are backing me up. And I think the people of Toronto and the people of Ontario, for that matter, the people of Canada, we're used to standing together. I said the other day, the Yonge Street van attack, people came together and responded, and that was a very big event. It's different than this, but those are the kinds of examples where people stand together, and we'll hope they do it again. I know they are already, and I will just be as steady as I can possibly be in being transparent and truthful and honest with people. And when it's bad news that has to be shared, we'll just share it, and hopefully that'll get us through this soon, and we'll be able to move forward and get back to better times.
Mayor Tory, it's good of you to spend so much time with us tonight, and good luck once you finally get out of your condo.
I'm just amazed at myself that I actually got on TV Ontario without, whoops, there, the earphone just fell out.
You spoke too soon.
I spoke too soon. But you be well too, and thank you to all the people who are being so cooperative in helping us to get through this. Thank you, and thank you for having me on, Steve.
Much appreciated. Until next time.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.